We're setting up tables. So when she breaks down for breakfast, I'll start to set up.
Oh, shoot, no.
This is Eileen Chapman, who's our councilwoman, and Yvonne Clayton. I'm lucky enough to serve on the Asbury Park City Council with a majority of women. So kudos to Asbury Park for that. And
this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful day. We're going to challenge you. We're going to excite you. We are going to have fun. So when you leave today, you're going to say, what's next? When do we get together again? Angela is the current president of the Asbury Park School System School Board. She is also the vice chair of the Asbury Park Democratic Committee. And Angela has been an anchor person. She's been a reporter. She's a writer. But her passion is empowering women and young girls.
And my mom, what's so great about being a girl? And my mom said everything that we do, because we are multitaskers. We can make the bacon and go out and cook it and take care of our kids. And when we were told to be quiet, we said, no, I have something to say. When they didn't pay us equal pay like our male counterparts, we stood up and we spoke out. Now, Maya Angelou wrote a poem that's called Still I Rise. And she talks about how resilient women are. You may write me down in history with your bitter and your twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Well, don't you let that hurt you, because I'll walk around here like I got oil wells pumping in my living room. You see, there's the moon and the sun and the certainty of tides and spring running high, and still I rise. Now, did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, weakened by my soulful cries? Well, let me tell you something. That doesn't work for me. Because my haughtiness, it may offend you, but don't you take that so awfully hard, because I laugh like I got gold mines digging in my backyard. Now, you may shoot me with your words, and you may cut me with your eyes. You can even kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Well, let me tell you, don't be surprised, because I dance like I got diamonds that meet there at my thighs. Out of the husk of history's shame, I rise. I rise because I am a woman. I rise because I have a voice. I rise because I am a powerful woman. I rise because I have purpose. I rise, you rise, we rise. Thank you.
When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's a click in my heels, the sun in my smile, the joy in my step, and the way I smile. Because I'm a woman, phenomenally phenomenal woman. That's me. Thank you.
Today we're going to hear from 3 panelists who are going to help us to give a little information, and then we're going to have a robust session of question and answer.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. I have the true joy of being here this week. It's been an incredible week for the women of New Jersey and for Planned Parenthood. Hopefully many of you already know that on Wednesday, Governor Murphy signed 2 bills, actually, that will both restore funding for Planned Parenthood and reproductive health care, and expand Medicaid coverage for up to 200% of the federal poverty level for women to get access to birth control or family planning. So we didn't just sit by the wayside and expect whoever the governor was going to be in 2018 to restore the funding and have everything go back to the way it was. We continued to be active. We continued to call. We continued to protest and rally and show support for this important issue. And because of that, and again, because of people like you, we were able to get that funding restored.
So it is very likely that many of us in this room, including myself, are going to be relying on Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid to care for us in our later years. And so we really need to make sure that we protect these programs against the cuts.
Women bear the brunt of that wear and tear. When we're not taking care of ourselves, we're making sure our children, our loved ones are cared for, but not taking the time to maintain our own health. So for us, it's no longer an option whether we should unite together to make sure that we're fighting for access to care.
It should not matter where you work or how much money you make, whether or not you can access the best care out there. So you're blessed.
The reason the Affordable Care Act, the expansion of Medicaid was not repealed and replaced was because people stood up for people.
It is only because of activism that Affordable Care Act has not been repealed.
At Planned Parenthood, we believe that access to reproductive health care should not depend on who you are, on where you live, on how much money you make. It is a fundamental right. And in that reproductive health care, birth control is a fundamental right. It is basic health care for women. It should not be considered outside what we get as our regular health care.
I can tell you, working in mental health, that we have wives who do come in, especially postpartum, and the husband want them home with that infant. So getting the care that they need is often, it goes untreated.
You know, we're not just here to say things. We want people to know that you can and have to act. Many of you asked questions about that. In the past year, we have seen people rise up, mostly women, all across the state and the nation against injustice. We've stood up to say it's time to make a change. We took our energy, we put it into marches, into vigils, into relentless numbers of visits to our representatives. We've written letters, talked to friends, neighbors, legislators, all to demand change and to reset the agenda that this country is currently following. How can we use all of that energy and all of that know-how to change healthcare? I am here to tell you, as the panelists are, that we can and have the power to set the agenda.
And in this democracy, it's all about activism. It's all about raising your voices. We need to hear from you as elected officials. Because I'm a legislator does not mean that I have all of the answers. The only way I have answers is gathering with folks like you and letting people in the State House, our governor, know that we have people in New Jersey who care. For those who do not have the voice, because it's 9 million of us here in New Jersey, but only 20% of us vote in our statewide elections, we need to carry that burden.
They're going to continue to try to limit women's choices, and we have to continue to fight, because we had this great victory this week. We know that we can have more victories. So we need to stick together and keep using our voices, and we know we'll win.
I can answer that with one word: vote. That is
I believe that health care is a right, and it is not a benefit. We've been fighting that. It's a right.
Well, if I could do anything, I would make men able to get pregnant, because then everyone would have access to birth control, right? It would be free for everyone.
I wasn't always trans, you should know that. What happened was I went to the hospital for a tonsillectomy. They were running a sale. Buy one, lose two. I did it late in life, too. I was almost 50 when I had the surgery. And so I didn't get to do a lot of things that young girls get to do. Like, I never got to make less money than men. I was never sexually harassed by anyone at Fox News. By the time I had the surgery, I was already in menopause. I swear to God, I came out of the anesthesia, I'm going, Christ, it's hot in here.
One of our goals for this women's convention was really about bringing all sorts of women together, and it was a nonpartisan event. So we wanted independents, we wanted Democrats, we wanted Republicans. So we checked the rolls in Asbury, and there's like 3 Republicans in Asbury Park. So we're like, okay, all right. So I remembered a phenomenal woman who I would see once a year or so at Monmouth Regional High School with me and a group of women, also a nonpartisan event, trying to get girls at Monmouth Regional High School jazzed about getting involved in politics. And so our next speaker was one of the speakers at those events over the years, and actually took my call about getting...
They call it screening. And what I'd like to do is spend just a few minutes explaining to you what my experience is and why and how I got over the old boy network. And don't tell me for 1 second it doesn't exist in the Democratic Party either. Call Barbara Buono. So when I went to screen for sheriff, I was wearing a dress and high heels and a red jacket because it was a Republican event. And I literally sat around a table, and my favorite politician, Jen Beck, was there, and Assemblywoman Amy Hanna was there, and the rest of them are white men sitting around the table saying, what are you qualified to do? And I have a decent background, you know, I used to try organized crime cases, used to be a federal prosecutor, used to be a state prosecutor, I had my own private practice, stuff like that, you know, like I had a real life before I got involved in politics. But the question they asked me was, you have 3 children. How do you plan on taking care of those children while you're the sheriff of Monmouth County? And you know, the lesson I want you all to hear now is that that was less than 10 years ago that question came to me. And second, I didn't have to respond, because Jen Beck and Amy Handlin had that guy out of the room so fast and up against the wall that he never asked the question again. So I was running against a chief of police who had retired after 30 years, and he had a fabulous suit uniform on with a hat and the gun and the stars and the cabbage on the vest, and he was really cool looking when it came to be the sheriff. And I kind of looked like this. In fact, I believe I was wearing pink, because during the course of the debate, the question was put to us, what makes you think you would be the better sheriff? And my opponent, Jack, who actually we had a nice time debating each other, Jack got to go first. So Jack gets up as expected and does this. I did this class and this class and this class, and I've done 30 years of this, and goes on and makes himself out to be, and he was, a very well-qualified law enforcement officer. And he ends with the following story. And he doesn't say it quite like this, but he's such a good law enforcement officer and so qualified to be sheriff that the National Academy, which is the highest award you can win, really, if you're in law enforcement, invited me to Quantico to be engaged with other people all over the world, other law enforcement officers all over the world for 10 weeks. And it truly is a high honor if anybody has any law enforcement background. So Jack finishes his debate and he sits down. I lean over to him, I said, Jack, I'm really sorry for what I'm about to do. And he looks at me, blank face. I get up behind the podium, and I thank Jack for his 30 years of experience in law enforcement, and we should all be proud of all the work he did, especially proud of the fact that he was at the National Academy, because it's a very specific gift to law enforcement officers, a real high praise. I said, I know Jack went to the National Academy. I taught at the National Academy. So I sit back down, I said, sorry, Jack. He said, I didn't know you taught at the National Academy. I said, obviously. So he never mentioned the National Academy again during the entire rest of the process. But the lesson for today is, know who you're running against, know who's advocating for their issues, understand where they're coming from, and then best them. Literally best them. Because if you do that, you may well end up being the first of something.
Because in this room is the next senator, is the next assembly person, is the next governor, is the next leader of an issue. They're all in this room. And you need to communicate with each other and share those ideas, because you're going to need each other in this war. Whatever one you pick, that's the first. The second is, as you move forward, as I'm doing today, reach as you rise. A lot of people gave me a lot of things. A lot of women along the way have given me the guts to do things that people said we couldn't do because we're women. Those people gave me strength, and now it's my job to reach. It's an Anna Quinlan line. A book she wrote, she said once, reach as you rise. Reach back as you move forward in each one of your careers, or if you're at the end of your career, reach back and find a woman that you can mentor and bring along, because we will all be better for it, no matter what our political backgrounds. And then the last thing is, win this one, would you? Equal pay is the next panel. Yesterday, Barclays, one of the world's largest banks, released their equal pay data. And the women at Barclays are making 50% less than their counterparts at Barclays in the 21st century, after all we've been through. And partners, I'm a lawyer, women partners are making 40% less than their counterparts in New Jersey. That's simply unacceptable in the 21st century, and I wish I was sitting on that panel, because I vent.
Because equal pay is critical to women's economic security. Women here in New Jersey earn 81 cents for every dollar a man earns. And when we look at race, white women earn about 78% of white men's earnings. Black women earn 66% of what a white man earns, and Hispanic women earn just over 50% of what a white man earns. So that means that in every paycheck and over the lifetime, women are losing money because of the gender pay gap. So we need to stop it. We need to close the gap, and we need to pay women fairly. So we have a panel today of four incredible women who are going to talk about why equal pay is important, what's going on here in New Jersey in terms of legislation and advocacy.
I am the product of a single mother who raised me by herself. She worked in a laundry in Newark all of her life. It was called Consolidated Laundry, if anyone's been to Newark. And the interesting thing about her, she always knew that the man working next to her doing exactly the same work was making more money than her. And she talked about it all the time, because she'd say, not only is he making more money, but if there's any opportunity to get a raise, it's not coming to me, it's going to him. And I realized while growing up the effect that that has on a person. I represent a district in New Jersey that I see every day the effect of people who are not making decent salaries. And I see the effect of how it makes a person feel that they have no dignity, that they're not respected. Dignity and respect is something that every human being needs. This legislation will help to restore, and in some cases, to give for the first time, that kind of feeling that you can take care of your family.
Let me point out something else. That when a woman is underpaid, it is not only her salary, it is the years going into her Social Security, which results in less Social Security as she ages because her salary was lower all those years. If she has a pension, it is the years going into her pension, which could result in a diminished pension. And then it is the daily life experiences. If you're earning less money than the man alongside you, that might mean that you can't give your child an extra advantage. Or it might mean that your child is not going to go to college. Or it might mean that it is one less doctor's visit and resulting in more serious illness. So you have to look at this in its entirety.
You interview for a job, and they always tend to get to that question, what were you making at your last job? Well, maybe you weren't working, or maybe you just took a job because you were trying to enter in, put your foot in the door, and took a lower salary. But whatever that reason was, it's none of their business, because a job should pay what a job should pay, right? These are young girls. To always think that way from the beginning. Don't doubt yourself. Keep helping with the self-esteem process, because we need to show our younger generation we're not standing for it now. We're going to make sure we're getting pay equity, but you're going to make sure that you're going to stand up for yourself and get what you deserve in the job that you want for the future.
I'm new to the workforce, out of college, and continuing my education. How can we as women be responding when we are bringing up these issues of the pay gap, when people say, well, it's just because women aren't in the same positions as men, they're not in the industries where men are making more money, when we know that the research says that that's not true? How do we engage in this conversation with people who don't have the same perspectives as us?
I don't think, none of us want to be in a situation where we're finding out 5, 6, 7 years down the road we're discriminated against and then needing to go to court to get our money back. Like, that's not how we want to approach this problem. We want those tools, and we want women to be able to do that if they're wronged, but what we really want is we want society to change so that companies know they need to be very deliberate about how they're paying people and fair. And I know something I had to do as an employer is go back and make a chart and look at how we were paying people based on their years' experience, and we need to make that change, and one of the ways we can do it is what I was talking about before, requiring large companies or companies to disclose publicly how they're paying people by gender, race, and ethnicity, and that forces companies to take a hard look at how they're paying people and clean up their act so they don't keep doing it. We just want to stop. We want to stop the discrimination. We don't want women to be having to act alone to solve their own problem. We want to solve the whole problem together, and that's the way to do it.
So I spoke to a friend of mine who's a woman and who is a recruiter for our big company. And she said, you know, and it's funny because she didn't realize, even though she knows I'm in the legislature, she didn't realize that the bill for salary history was my bill. And so she goes, you know, I can't ask people anymore about their salary history. And I said, yeah, I know, isn't that great? And I said, it's not completely done yet, but it will be. And she goes, well, we're already like talking about not doing it. And she goes, you know what, she goes, as a woman, I love it. She goes, as a recruiter, I hate it, because that's true, you're right. We have a salary range. We have a range from $40,000 to $80,000, and now we have to be transparent about what the job pays.
I don't want to wait for my daughter to get equal pay when she's 46, when she's my age, and that's what the data suggests. If we don't take strong action, it's going to be about 36 years before young women growing up today are going to achieve equal pay. So I want to ask you all to really get active, because there are going to be some aspects of these pieces of legislation that are going to be under attack. In particular, I know we don't have a lot of time to get into too much detail, but one of the things that Senator Weinberg's bill does that's very powerful is it allows us to make the case to get back pay for every year we can prove that we were discriminated against.
lot of things that they've discussed that will affect me, that has affected me, and will continue to affect me.
So we're halfway through the day. What do you think is your biggest takeaway at the moment?
Honestly, I came here trying to get more educated. I didn't really know a lot about like the wage gap and everything, and especially the last thing that we just had there was like really eye-opening for me.
Because there is absolutely a gender wage gap in my real life. It's not just something that's out there that is intangible. I feel it. I see it every day. So
we didn't talk about it, even the women amongst ourselves back then. It was accepted. Yeah, I make less money than my male counterparts. It was always explained to me that's because he has to go home and support his family, and my income was extra. That wasn't true then, and it's certainly not true now.
This event is important to me because as a woman I feel empowered by all the women that have taken leadership roles that will be here today.
And I work in investment banking, which is a male-dominated industry. I'm the only female associate in my entire firm, and so a lot of the issues that are being discussed are things that I am faced with, like equal pay, and so I think it's been great to see the work that's being done. And
all the topics that they're going to be talking about today, it's just going to further people's knowledge and further women's feeling strong and bold and powerful as they should. So
the force of change is so strong that it's just like, all right, we just have to keep it going. And everyone seems to be so passionate about keeping it going, and that's the best. That's all we can do.
So listening to some of the young women that came up and asked questions during the health panel made me feel good. Gave me hope.
Excellent.
And we need hope. It's my favorite word.
But to hear those panelists talk about it, it gave me a better understanding of it, what it all encompasses.
Everybody who attended realizes they have a voice, and women have got to have a voice, and a very strong one.
We are rising. Women are rising. So I feel very passionate about all the stuff that I've heard so far, including pay equity, health care for women. Just love it.
It would be amazing to have equal representation across the board, because I think then we would have dialogue and conversation instead of anger and conflict.
So yes, we're seeing women across the country that are stepping up and want to participate in Monmouth County. We've seen it. I don't even know what's going to happen in Monmouth County this year because of the activism and enthusiasm that women have.
Well, I'm excited to see what else happens this afternoon, so I will be sticking around after lunch, and I'm sure I'll have more to say later.
Our next act, Marguerite King of Little Vicious and Desiree Spinks of Des and the Swagmatics performing Respect. Let's hear it for them.
Women did such an amazing job in pulling that event off in an extraordinarily short period of time, and I think they deserve both the Women's Convention and all of you. I think they deserve a huge round of applause.
And I'm so proud to have been the start of something that inspired so many women to run for office, to make a difference in their communities. And I'm so proud to be amongst these women here who have kept the Women's March going. So that's all I gotta say is stay fired up!
Say that I'm so inspired by all the work that you guys have been doing. And these students and teachers in Parkland are just giving me life right now. So we have to support them, and they are just, they took a tragedy and really stepped up, and I think that's kind of the national movement right now.
We decided to, instead of just talking about it, be the change, and look at how far we've come. This is incredible. So let's keep going, let's keep it up, let's stay empowered. And everybody being empowered just brings it right back to us. And just lead with love. That's always what I try to do, and it's always what I try to do with this message. It's hard not to be angry about some of the things going on, but if you take a minute and try to lead with love, I think it'll get us through. So.
I said the day after the march is something that's really stuck with me. It's you can wake up and think that you can do something and just go do it. Whatever you think you can do, you can do. Because we never in a million years thought that there would be that many people there on that day. And it was...
The FBI recognizes sexual assault as the second most violent crime, the first of which is murder. The FBI also indicates that sexual assault is the most underreported crime and that 92% of rapists will never spend a day in jail. The majority, 75 to 80% of sexual assault survivors know the person who caused them harm. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that the lifetime cost for sexual assault victimization is approximately $122,000 per survivor. This includes medical and mental health services, lost wages, withdrawal from higher education resulting in lost tuition payments, drug and alcohol addiction services. Victims of sexual violence attempt suicide 13 times more frequently than non-victims.
So, as preventionists, we're looking to prevent that entire spectrum, not just what is criminal rape or sexual assault. This isn't specifically crime prevention, it's sexual violence prevention. We want to work to create safer communities, not just end crime.
So it impacts the way that you view the world if you're constantly seeing certain people framed in a certain way. And if men are viewing women as less than constantly all day long, or we as a culture are viewing people of a certain race as a stereotype, all day long, it impacts how we then treat them because our thoughts of them are skewed and we don't see them as full humans anymore.
In media lately, there have been conversations about sexual assault all the time, and that has given me the opportunity to have conversations with people that I would have never had conversations with before. And it started with having a conversation with my mother, and she had been arguing with her husband about the Me Too movement, and she had never spoken to me about her story before and how sexual violence affected her upbringing. And, you know, being able to talk about that, you know, that was something that was big to me.
People really want to take this opportunity in this victim-blaming culture to say, well, so-and-so should just say no. And the reality is that we haven't been taught to say no, right? And so we like to give this example of, you have this really nice next-door neighbor who calls you and says, I'm making meatloaf. You guys should come over tomorrow night and, like, have meatloaf. And you're thinking, I don't really like meatloaf, and I kind of also don't like you, but you're my neighbor, and I need to be polite. I've been taught to be polite. So you don't just say, no, I don't like you, and I don't like meatloaf. You find a polite way to decline, and you say, oh, you know, I really wish I could, but we actually have plans tomorrow night. And then she's like, oh, well, that's okay, meatloaf keeps. Why don't you come over the next night? And then you're like, now I gotta come up with another excuse. And so you get down this path of like trying to find all of these ways out. And like, it's not to make a joke of it, it's to make it really tangible and practical. We haven't even been taught how to directly decline meatloaf. So when we tell people, well, you should have just said no, with what tools? We haven't taught people how to say no. We've taught people to be polite and to be nice and to kiss your grandmother on the cheek even if you don't want to, and to allow your uncle to tickle you even if it's uncomfortable. And so the idea of us telling people you should just say no, well, we haven't taught them how to say no in any other scenario. So it's complete crap to expect people to say no directly when it comes to issues of power-based violence.
When a colleague did that, leered at a woman, he was able to open that conversation and say, what if that happened to your daughter? What if that was your daughter? And he was like, dude, that's messed up. Yes, it's messed up. And you shouldn't be doing that to other people either. And I really don't like using that as a tactic to get people to understand, but it does work. And when we look at prevention, we can't just look at prevention as like this one-size-fits-all thing. Prevention has to be multiple facets. So if that's going to get someone to get over that hump of understanding, that's what I usually go to first.
We live in very much a call-out culture where if someone does something that upsets you, oftentimes we're quick to attack or we're quick to be aggressive. My advice is to call them into the conversation and have the one-on-one, like Sarah said. If you're comfortable having the one-on-one, possibly like reaching out to someone who you feel safe talking to beforehand and having a conversation with them. Conversations genuinely do change things on a bigger level. It doesn't have to be a matter of trying to completely change who this person is, but letting them know that like their words have impact, and though their intent might not have been to be hurtful, their impact was.
Sort of as we're thinking about the young people that are organizing and harnessing their strength and their power and their voice across the country right now, like if you're not satisfied with the response from a professional in your school, an adult in your school, like take it up the chain. Because you as a young woman are entitled to get an education and to go to school in an environment that is free from that kind of harassment and toxicity. And if the immediate people that you go to don't want to resolve the issue and they dismiss it as like boys will be boys and you're just being sensitive, don't accept that. And none of us in this room should accept that. And if a young person in our lives comes to us and says that this has happened, then we have a responsibility to go to bat with them and to support them so that this doesn't continue and this doesn't fester.
We have a lot of young people in our lives, whether they are our children, whether they are children that we teach or that we mentor in some kind of capacity, and respecting their physical autonomy is crucial. And with that, little kids know when they don't like to do certain things, and if they tell you to stop, stop.
Talk about it. This isn't a partisan issue. This isn't a generational issue. And where we fall on sides of this issue shouldn't be partisan or generational either. And so we as an organization have issued statements just as strongly for Al Franken as we have for anyone else. But it is important to understand that, again, 75 to 80% of survivors know their perpetrator. So just as it is hard for us to reconcile a famous person who's committed bad acts, if you sort of pull that down to a really deep personal level, this is why survivors also don't come forward when someone they've loved and trusted has assaulted them. Because those relationships and those identities that we have with perpetrators are real and they're strong and they're based off of manipulation and a public persona that often does not line up with how someone is behaving behind the scenes. Like the rape culture is real, so let's vote out the people that perpetuate that rape culture.
Teach your children accurate names for all of their body parts. They have a vulva, they have a vagina, and they have a penis. You don't need to be giving them other names. Teach them the accurate names of their body parts, just like you would teach them that their ear is an ear.
Earlier, be an active bystander, but when it's safe and appropriate, call out oppression, call out oppressive language and behaviors, and start to shift the culture so we can live in a safer garden state. Thank you so much for giving us a chance to be here today.
She served with the Assembly from 2014 until this past year, and she has been a powerhouse for speaking on this very heavy topic that we've been speaking on in the last panel.
For people that don't know, I was a legislator, and last year, New Year's Day, I experienced it was a very horrific New Year's Day. I was in a relationship with someone that physically assaulted me several times. And New Year's Day was the day that they put me in the hospital. And it was something that I had been quiet about and had not spoken about until very recently. And it was something that greatly affected me. Part of the reason why I spoke out was because I not only realized how gravely it was affecting me emotionally and mentally, but I saw that there were other people that I thought may have been experiencing the same issues. And so I thought sharing my story might encourage them and empower them to not only get out of the relationship that they were in, but also to seek help for themselves. And for those that may have experienced it in the past, to seek help. You know, when we talk about PTSD, a lot of people think veterans. Women experience PTSD 3 times greater than any other demographic because of sexual assault, physical assault. We're more prone to experience incidents that are traumatic. You know, it happens to men and women. It happens to everyone. And it really, when you think about it, it isn't a partisan issue. You know, 1 in 3 women experience domestic violence. 1 in 8 men experience domestic violence. We need to push for the legislature to fund a lot of these bills. We're talking about training for judges, training for prosecutors, training for police, not just, you know, changing the law, as well as stiffer penalties for assault that's committed through domestic violence. You know, somebody hitting you at the bar is not the same as, you know, your spouse or your partner hitting you several times. You know, it really, you know, there needs to be different penalties. It needs to be seen as something different altogether. But we don't really talk about how we sometimes raise men to think that this behavior is okay. And when we victim blame, when we say, well, why did she stay? Instead of saying, well, why did he hit? You know, we need to shift that conversation to hold them accountable in a different way and start to have men take responsibility for their actions. And I wanted
She performs all over New Jersey and NY in clubs such as the Stress Factory, and she's been featured on the Stage Show. So without further ado, please give it up for Ritu Chandra.
And I did it. I got a husband, and we're still married. And then I spent my 30s just wanting to have a baby. That's all I wanted, just have a baby. And I did that too, I got the baby. And now I spend my 40s doing stand-up comedy. Yeah, thank you. Basically taking every opportunity I can to get away from that husband and that baby. That, like, he thought he was marrying a woman who was gonna make Wall Street money. That's what he was expecting. I'm not even making Walmart money doing this, so he's not laughing about it either, I'll tell you that. He's not. He orders me around a lot, you know? He's always like, mommy do this, mommy do that. But what I hear is bitch, right? Like, bitch, get me a cookie. Bitch, turn on SpongeBob. Bitch, wipe my ass. And you just run around doing it. You do. It's your child. I mean, there's no one in the world who can get away with treating you that crappy and you would put up with it from anybody else, right? Like, nobody. Because, like, if this guy came to my house, right, and for the sake of this joke, we'll pretend I'd let him in, right? Like, if he comes to my house, breaks my iPad, and pisses on my floor, I'm not making him pizza bagels afterwards, right? That's not happening, sir, sorry. It's not. My neighbor came over the other day. She said to me, she said, "You always look so tan." I am not making this up, people. She said that to me. I was like, does this bitch not realize this is permanent? Like, does she just think I'm a Snooki living next door? I don't know what she's thinking. But yeah, I mean, it's not that surprising. I'm pretty sure they just thought I was the nanny. For the first few years I was living there. But I'm not Nanny Brown, if anyone was wondering. That is not my shade of brown. I like to describe myself more as tech support cardiologist Brown, if that makes it clear to you guys, yeah. And for anyone who's not clear, I'm saying I'm Indian. That is my shade of brown. My parents are from India, actually. I was born and raised here in the United States, and I'm very, very proud to be from the United States, I am. Because there is no other country in the world where a little brown girl can grow up to be a spoiled suburban white woman, so... That's right.
Last year during the Women's March, this woman's freeholder went on Facebook and basically mocked the entire concept of the Women's March. He said very sexist things online. This woman had never run for office before, had zero political experience. But she decided, after seeing those posts, that she was going to do something. She was going to run against him. And she did, and she won. It is my absolute honor and privilege to present the Time's Up Award on behalf of the Asbury Park Women's Convention to freeholder Ashley Bennett.
So let's start with Mariel, who is our youngest panelist in a time where the youth is starting to hopefully take over this country with activism.
I was pretty sure that I didn't want to run for office. I was doing advocacy work for women and people of color at West Point, advocating for LGBT folks in the military down at the Pentagon, and I really didn't want to run for office. My vision, and here's why. I had imagined that I would have to meet strangers.
That's true.
And that is true. And that I wouldn't like it. and that I would have to talk to them. They might say nasty things to me. And the reality is, what I didn't realize, what I didn't put together until I had the opportunity to run, until I said yes, was the people that you meet in the process of a campaign are primarily people who care about their community. People who are invested, that's right, people who are invested in making things better. People who care about the same things that you do.
And I started going to run for office interest meetings at the Monmouth County Democrats headquarters, thinking I would run in 5 to 10 years, not really thinking that I had what it takes at 25 years old. And I was encouraged to run by somebody, and I decided to go for it. And throughout this process, I realized that I am capable. And I think everyone in this audience needs to realize that they are capable too, if you have not already. As someone who was broke, I had no connections, no political establishment, I was able to secure the most votes for the nominating convention, and I ended up running. And though I didn't win, you know, I ran hard. And losing an election when you run a strong and honest campaign opens up much more doors than it closes.
Yeah, I knew I wasn't going to win. I just knew that. You know, but the numbers were against us. But it was just so important that people know that there are other people out there, there are other ideas, people who think like you. And a lot of people started coming out and voting more when they saw that. It excited them. And after that, I decided that what I wanted to do was focus on that, on getting out the vote, etc., certain issues. So I joined the league. I became state president of the New Jersey League for 4 years. And now I'm at the league at national level. I'm the secretary on the board. So I've been having a wonderful time with that. And I encourage everybody, all of you women out there, to run. It's worth it. You'd be surprised how many people are out there to support you, and there are resources, which I'm
Men run because they decide that they're qualified. Women run only when they're asked. We've got to do better than that. We've got to do better. We've got to do better. Don't wait to be asked. But here's something else I will say. Ask each other. Ask each other. I would not be in Governor Murphy's cabinet if some very key women friends hadn't pushed and nudged me.
I went to Center for American Women in Politics, and they have a program called Ready to Run. And underneath that program, they have a sub-program called Run Sister Run. So I attended both of those, and they teach you everything. They talk about election law, filing, they talk about debates, how to sit.
I also did the Ready to Run program. Absolutely fantastic program. You know, like Tony said, they teach you everything, even stuff that I didn't think about, you know, when you're on stage. What to do with your hands, how to position your feet. Really gives you the foundation for the things you're going to need when you first start running.
Well, there are also other roles in government that don't require you to run for office. There are appointed boards and commissions, and there are lots of ways that you can serve and be involved on issues that you care about. And there I would, touch base with your city council people, touch base with the mayor. I mean, in Monmouth County, I can't think of a mayor that you couldn't go and talk to.
I agree. I used to volunteer for the Planned Parenthood Action Fund. We would brief elected officials on our issues, and so people do the same thing for candidates. I sat down with someone from Hazlitt, actually, who's a business owner in Keensburg. He sat with me for an hour and discussed property taxes with me and the new Monmouth County system, because I'm not a homeowner. And the number one issue in Jersey is property taxes. So I needed to do my homework. And there are people who are more than willing to sit you down and say, hey, these are our issues. This is how we need our representatives to make decisions. And Like you said, people want you to win.
You tell me, how do you feel when you hear politicians, particularly males, get up and act in an inauthentic and potentially misinformation kind of fashion?
Yeah, you know what, I have a different perspective than other people, but I actually appreciate when someone is honest with me and says, you know what, I don't know, I'm unfamiliar with this issue, but I'm gonna look into it. I promise you that I will find out about it. Tell me about what you think, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go and do my homework and get an answer for you. I just don't have that right now. And that's something I did a lot. Again, I was 25 years old when I ran. Property taxes being the biggest issue in New Jersey. I didn't know everything right away. And I didn't want someone to vote for me because I sounded good. I wanted someone to vote for me because they thought that I was the best candidate and that I was gonna work hard for them. And in my opinion, when you are honest and say, listen, I'm not sure, but I will get back to you and I promise. It might be viewed as a weakness, but I personally appreciate it when candidates do that for me, are honest with themselves.
The most local thing you could do originally is run for your school board. Second to that would be local council person. Then it would be mayor. From mayor, it would be county office, county freeholder. After county freeholder, in certain counties they have county executives. They don't in Monmouth, but they do in some counties. And then you move up to state assembly, state senate, then you move up to lieutenant governor or governor. Then there's all the appointed positions in state government and judges, which in New Jersey are all appointed by the governor. In other states, they're elected, judges are elected, and other positions are elected. And then there's everything else. And what I mean by that is, to run a $34 billion government, you're going to employ close to 60,000 people. Of those 60,000 people, about 1,600 are what's called at-will employees of the governor. The governor, whatever governor comes in, gets to pick people who share his values. Hence Sue Fulton running a cabinet division under Murphy.
We have this opportunity in 2018 and 2020 that's unique, at least in my lifetime, to really make a change. We have people who are activated, who are engaged, who are looking to make a change, and I'm talking about getting women in places of power. I'm talking about electing women, also talking about getting women appointed. And I think it's really critical right now to think about how we get women into all of those levels. We get, whether we're talking about mayors and city council people, all the way up, that we have to get women in those positions, because this is our opportunity to change those things and make a difference.
Really quick, I want to ask, how many people in this room have thought about running for office before? I want to see all of your names on a ballot, okay? And if you're thinking about it within 5-10 years like I was, I would really encourage you to think about running sooner. The worst case scenario, you screen for the nomination and you don't get it. Now you're more prepared for next time, and you know what the process looks like a little more than you did before. Your worst case scenario is being more prepared for next time. There's no better time than now for women to get involved. You can do it. If I could do it with no money, no connections, no political establishment, and now I've got one run under my belt and I'm the chair of the Monmouth County Young Democrats and we're building up young voters, you can absolutely do it too.
We have to continue to work for the little things and the big things. And with the special administration we have now, so I applaud these women here for doing what they have done to keep our message going. And I want to again present this now to all of you and say congratulations. Thank you for all your hard work. This is an amazing, amazing event. And please keep it up. And I know I'll see every one of you on all different things that just like I have in the past, and we'll continue.
So we just want to say thank you to all of you, thank you to all the organizers, and thank you to all our sponsors who helped us put this event on, and thank you, Joanne, so much. We are looking to sponsor women to go to the Ready to Run program in March. So if we can talk you into donating to our GoFundMe page, leave some cash at the front or the will call or a check. Any proceeds after we pay everything that needs to get paid is going to be sponsoring women to do the Ready to Run program, which personally I took the Ready to Run program and thought it was amazing and eventually ran for office and won. So.
This event came at a time when I think there's a national conversation about the role that women have and the role that women have in changing both what's going on in this country and what's going on in the world, and it was thrilling to be a part of it.
The diversity among the group of women was amazing and energizing and most of all respectful.
Barriers that we may or may not even see, that people feel are in the way of making change can be broken down if people are willing to just listen and take a little risk.
I think today there were a number of instances where people just phrase things in a certain way that it suddenly had you thinking about something that you've thought about for a long time in a completely different way, where it impacted you more deeply than something had before.
Equal representation of women in all political and cultural life is extremely important.
That's it. We're 51% of the population in the working force. We're the moms, we're the grandmas. Things will be a lot more peaceful and a lot more less chaotic and stable if more women were in government, because we think of everyone.
I loved having women from both sides of the aisle, as well as generations. I saw toddlers here right up on to great-grandmothers, and it was really just a wonderful opportunity to bring women together, strong women together. I was happy to be a part of it.
That I saw an awful lot of young women here who are really inspired and willing to put in the time and the effort to make this country a better place.
This event for me, as a young woman who's currently in college and trying to pursue a career in a very male-dominated field, has been super empowering.
But I feel empowered, and I think having these panels, having the comedians, everything was well run, and now I feel even more empowered and ready to go out and speak my truth.
As someone who fought for the ERA, those many years ago, it's really exciting to see how many women, young women, particularly younger women, who have decided they know they can make a difference.
I'm walking out feeling more empowered, more like I can attempt to do things that maybe I second-guessed myself about.
I want more women to get involved in politics. I want more mothers to be able to come to meetings and rule the world.
Wonderful experience. I'm so glad that I got to come with my daughter and my sister.
And I really need to start seeing some solutions to these healthcare problems that we're having.
So I got a lot out of today, and I'll be back and you'll see me do more.
And some of the presenters today also represented the younger generation, and I'm just so proud of them.
Whether or not other women speak up about it, there's just something that's refreshing to know that people that have had those challenges in their life were able to overcome them, and you are sharing a space with overcomers.
I think if more women were in power, we would have better health care, better child care, better education, in general, a more compassionate world.
And it was a great event for women in New Jersey, state of New Jersey, and we should definitely do this again.
We're getting people involved. We're going to continue to keep them involved.
And sometimes you just need to be reminded that change starts right here with you and with us and with the community. And this is a great event and a good venue to remind yourselves of that.
I don't think there's a woman that could walk out of here not just seeing the world in a different way.
But now I feel like I could get involved.
Yeah, we make changes here at the ground level, and seeing women around us doing that is super inspiring, and hopefully we all are feeling the drive to go out and make a change in our own community.
And to really bring awareness and actually do something about it, as opposed to just talk about it.
This was a phenomenal event, informative, empowering, and I think this should be duplicated in many parts of our state.
Be around so many progressive women.
And I hope it is a yearly event.
We're going to make change.
It was awesome.
Good job.